Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Okay, I think today we'll start straight away with a meditation, because today I'm going to talk about the last of these great stages, called spiritual rebirth. At least that's one way of talking about it, and that's the most difficult thing to talk about. So I need to meditate first, and so do you. So after the stress of getting into the room, let's see if we can just meditate for a bit. Okay, so when you're ready, closing your eyes. So as soon as you've closed your eyes, just opening up to your physical sense. So it's not even that you need to bring your mind into your body. Your mind is already your body. You just need to open up to the sensations of your body. And those sensations are not thoughts, they're not images, they're not ideas. The direct sensations. So we're trying to move immediately from a constructed sense of our experience, which is to do with thought and analysis and so on, into something more direct, more immediate, which is a direct sense of your body. So first of all, noticing the weight of your body on the cushions and the chair. Feel how the chair or the cushions are supporting your weight. And you can let go into that support. once again, softening your face. Softening your brow. Softening the muscles around your eyes. If you can tell if you're gripping with your jaw or holding on with your mouth. As soon as you soften your face, as soon as you soften your eyes, even without doing any more than that, your mind will start to quieten down. And then bringing your mind into your shoulders. And our shoulders get a lot of punishment nowadays, especially so many of us are just leant over computers. So see if you can feel how your shoulders are just now. See if you can not react to any discomfort in your shoulders. That'll only make it worse. And just imagine your shoulders dropping down your back. So you don't need to be bracing your shoulders anymore. You can just let them drop down your back. So even if you have a imaginative sense, slight imaginative sense of the muscles in your shoulders smoothing out. Smoothing out. Soothing any soreness or tightness. You don't need to try to make anything happen. You can just imagine your shoulders are dropping down your back, calming down, smoothing and soothing out. then bringing your attention into your belly. And again, see if you can just imagine your belly softening, releasing. And that means being willing to feel the sensations of the belly, even if they're uncomfortable. So your whole body is calming down, quietening down. Your whole system, your mind, your feelings, your body. And then tuning into your breath. See if you can follow the breath all the way in and all the way out. Even having this sense that feeling the breath is calming your body, calming your mind. So have a sense that the breath is soothing in itself. And then including more and more of your body sensations, well as your breath. Feeling the life of your body. Antarctica. I am just going outside, and maybe some time. The others nod, pretending not to know. At the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. He leaves them reading and begins to climb, goading his ghost into the howling snow. He is just going outside, and maybe some time. The tent recedes beneath its crust of grime, and frostbite is replaced by vertigo at the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. Need we consider it some sort of crime, this numb self-sacrifice of the weakest? No. He is just going outside, and maybe some time. In fact, forever. Solitary enzyme. Though the night yield no glimmer, there will glow at the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. He takes his leave of the earthly pantomime, quietly knowing it is time to go. I am just going outside, and maybe some time. At the heart of the ridiculous, the sublime. Okay, sitting up, don't keep sitting on your knees, you'll need your knees for later. Okay, so this is the final Saturday of our meditation challenge, and the final of these 4 sessions that I've been leading on. Well, traditionally it's called the 5 stages of the path. We've actually missed one, but hey. I was down to do 4, and 4 it was. That's its traditional name anyway, the 5 stages of the path, the 5 great stages of the path. But really what that means is the kind of shape, the kind of contours that a well-lived life, even the best lived life, goes through. Yeah. That's really what it means. All these technicalities, you have to kind of see what they're getting at. And it's trying to describe what the best lived life and at least what the well-lived life looks like. And in doing it, my own experience has been very shadowed by death. So my mother died at the end of last year. Somebody was talking to me about her just last week and was talking about her in the past tense, and I felt almost insulted. You know, I felt like I'm not ready to talk about her in the past tense yet. It's a very odd experience. And I was actually doing the eulogy at the funeral only 2 weeks ago or something like that during these sessions. So my mother's death has very much created how I look at my own life and how I look at the Buddhist path. And I think that is exactly how it should be. That the well-lived life is a life well-lived in relationship to death. Death is always a presence in our life. It's just that the death of your mother or whoever highlights that presence. It's always there, and it's very, very mysterious. And even whilst we've been doing this 4-week series, a good friend of mine, Nico, who's here in the room, his father died, Robert. Robert would have been here, I'm sure, and everybody would have known it. Robert has this wonderful kind of warmth that with sort of, some people can do it, kind of, they sort of radiate a kind of warmth and extroversion that goes across the room. I've been on retreat with Robert. So Robert died during these last 4 weeks, and then just yesterday, a good friend of mine that I live with upstairs, Maitreyabandhu, his cousin died in a car crash, and he's just gone back to Ireland. And he was showing me just yesterday a photograph of his cousin, and he looks just like Maitreyabandhu. And then that's without even imagining beyond the people that I'm in direct friendship with. Suddenly my mind went to the Ukraine and the unspeakable horrors there, and that's just a part that I don't even know about. I have a friend who's Ukrainian, and when the war first broke out, he came to talk to me, and I was deeply affected by that. But that experience where someone tells you some terrible news, and in this case, like his parents were living in the corridor of their flat because they didn't dare be in the lounge in case there were bombs that would fall and therefore smash the glass. Still you then have to go and have lunch. It's really weird. And decide whether you want, smashed avocados or not, which almost inevitably you do. And get picky about whether you have oat milk or soy milk. That death and life don't go together, and yet they must. So really, if we're to look at life in any degree of seriousness, in real seriousness, we need to look at it in relationship to death. To what degree is how I'm living now appropriate to the fact of death, consonant with it. So there's two things for me that have come out of that, thinking again from that perspective, or thinking from that perspective in a more heightened way, even a more painful way. There's the obvious thing of, just yesterday I was resenting somebody for some utterly trivial and stupid thing, which is clearly not a valuable thing to do, given that my mother's died and my friends, etc., and I will die, of course. So much of our time we spend in fruitless and futile indignation, in resentments, in petty rivalries, and so on. And we all do it. I do it, and you do it. And it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate to the facts of life, and it's certainly not appropriate to the fact of death. That's fairly obvious. But then this path that I've been trying to sort of give a very brief sketch of is saying, okay, well, given that fact, you need to really own your life. You need to take ownership of your life. You need to become, as I said in week 1, and you can catch up on YouTube, you need to become a sovereign individual. You need to own your life. Especially you need to take ownership of your mental states. Because if you don't do that, other people will. And your phone will take ownership of your mental states. And that's not appropriate in the fact of death. that you spend your life, that I spend my life, scrolling through Instagram or giving my opinion on Facebook. Yeah, what I need to do is truly live from my own side. Yeah, and that's what mindfulness really is about. Easily people teach about mindfulness, and I don't really recognise it. But mindfulness is really about fully owning your agency in life, and that's a very difficult thing to do. I'll be leading a course on it as a sort of follow-on to this from the 15th of February, so do come and join me on that course. It's an online course and an in-person course. But even taking full ownership of your life isn't enough in the face of death. In the face of death, I need to also contribute to life as much as possible. I need to contribute to my own life, and I need to contribute to the lives of all those that I meet. And that's a moment-to-moment choice. When you go to a shop and buy something, when you're talking to your mother on the phone, as I used to, it's a moment-to-moment question of, are you going to contribute to this situation, or are you going to come up with some objections, which is so easy to do. It's so easy to just keep coming up with objections to things, which isn't a contribution, it's just an objection. So this second stage of the path that I've been sort of going through these last weeks has been about, it's called positive emotion, but it really means emotional strength or even positive action. It's where you quite consciously contribute to your own life and to those lives around you, especially in ways of like generosity, loving kindness. I don't particularly mean in a sort of global way. I mean simply courtesy to people you don't know, love to those that you do, openness to all beings, in a day-to-day, going to Sainsbury's kind of way. In your actual life, not in some other place. Because the good you can do, and none of us can do very much good unless we're prodigiously gifted, the good that you can do is mainly the good that you do to those you actually come into contact with. And you can be a source of value to them. So the Maitreyabandhu practice that we teach here at the Buddhist Center really is a sort of starter kit for that. It's training in being a source of value and meaning and goodness in your own life, because so many of us are tortured by harsh inner criticism. So first of all, we need to be a source of goodness in our own life, and for many people that's a very, very hard task because that's not been modelled in their life very much. So they'll struggle more to feel a relationship with themselves that is encouraging, growthful, connective, and so on. But also, very much a contribution to other people's lives. Because when you die, people will not remember you for how many emails you got out. They won't remember you for your brilliant sort of skeptical criticism, or your capacity to sort of find another objection to that argument. What they'll remember you for is the age-old things of your kindness, your generosity, how much they felt loved by you, how much you were able to forgive them. I went to see the Fabelmans last night, and part of it is it's very humane. It's very much about people do stuff and it hurts other people, and you can be humane about that and loving about that. Yeah. And that's what you'll be remembered for. And that's whether people will come to see you as you get older, is to do with that. Not to do with your campaigning, not to do with your wardrobe, not to do with anything else. Yeah. So those are in a way the two first great stages. And I've covered those a lot, first 2 weeks. But even with that, there's something about life that we really don't understand, that we really don't get. And when I say we, I mean all of us, including me. I get glimpses of it, and you get glimpses of this understanding. But it's a glimpse at a void that's very, very difficult to hold on to. That there's some, at the heart of life, at the heart of this being in the world, which is, after this I'll go and have lunch with somebody, then I'm going to go and see the Cézannes, which I'll mention later. Then I'm going to get a train. That ordinary life that we all just live, and probably do an email on my phone, in the midst of that, there's some massive question about the very nature of being. Yeah? And it's that great question that Buddhism is particularly concerned with. Because even if you become this wonderful image of gravitas and self-ownership, mindfulness creates this sense of gravitas, this weightedness, that there's more of you present, in other words. Even if you do that, and even if you manage to make a remarkable contribution to the lives of those around you and are much beloved, which is really what you need and what you want, there's still the problem of death. There's still the problem of old age, sickness and death, actually, as the tradition would put it. So the Buddha would be saying, once you've been developing those two great stages, you need to look much more closely at what you think is your experience. The first thing he'd probably say is that what you think is your experience is actually mostly interpretation. It's not experience at all. It's you talking about your experience. But today I particularly want to come into this great question of when you look deeply enough at your experience, as we touched on last week, you start to see that your primal conception of here I am as a really existing me, a self as we call it, which is really a metaphysical term, but that sense of me-ness, and I want to get what I want and I don't want to get what I don't want, that sense of me in connection with a really existing world, and which is mostly other people, but that really existing world, the Buddha's saying that's wrong. You've misunderstood that. Yeah? That there's something right at the heart of your sense of what it is to be human that you've misunderstood. And because you've misunderstood it, the Buddha would say, you're causing yourself suffering all the time, even if it doesn't feel like that very much. In other words, he's saying your experience could be infinitesimally more blissful than you can imagine. It's you just like twisted your life, and you've twisted it. It's a bit like one of those rubber bands. You twist it in two, and when you twisted your life like that, and I did, you make a self on one hand and a world on another. Yeah? And that is something that we do all the time. We twist life to create that. Yeah? We don't know we're doing that, we do it instinctively. So to see through that and to see into that is the stage of spiritual death that I was talking about last week. But what do you open up to? You're not just trying to untwist. What does that mean that you end up with an untwisted life? You open up to something much, much more. So luckily in the second half, I'll try to say a bit about that. It's a stage of spiritual rebirth, which is the most important thing I could teach you, but it's almost impossible to teach. In fact, you have to sort of get it. And you can only get it to the degree to which you're genuinely integrated, embodied, human, open-hearted. Then you can start to see in any Buddhist teaching or teacher what they're getting at about spiritual rebirth. But let's come back to that after the tea break, and then let's just do another meditation just now, just to keep on stepping down into our direct experience. So when you're ready, closing your eyes once again. And I'll read us another poem at the end. So again, just opening up to the body sense. So today we're trying to explore the nature of reality, and that's not separate from our body sense. It's not like it's going to be a theory that we need to crack our head on. It's more of a hunch that we need to open up to. And hunches are something you feel in your body. Just opening up to the body sense and to the weight of your body on the chair, on the cushions. Just to have this sense that your whole body is breathing. So it's almost like you're breathing through the pores in your skin. And this is just an imaginative sense, but it will have an effect. And just see if you can settle into breathing. Imagine your body resting down on the cushions of the chair. Following the whole breath. The Dawn Chorus. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss, say the psychologists and the poets too. We yearn for that reality in this. There is another world resides in this. Amidst the muddy fields, a pool of blue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. If we could once achieve a synthesis of the archaic and the entirely new, we yearn for that reality in this. but wide awake, clear-eyed with cowardice, the flaming seraphim we find untrue. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. Listening, heartbroken, to the dawn chorus, clutching the certainty that once we flew, we yearn for that reality in this. Awaiting still our metamorphosis, we hoard the fragments of what once we knew. It is not sleep itself, but dreams we miss. We yearn for that reality in this. Okay, so now we're going to attempt a cup of tea. Okay. So let's just start again with just a brief meditation just to come back after the talk. Again, just closing your eyes. And just opening up to how you're feeling now. And you don't need to ask yourself how you're feeling, you just need to open up to yourself a bit. And you can be feeling okay or not okay, better than okay, worse than not okay. And you can just open to that, whatever it is. Yeah? It's just the weather of your psyche, and it's no use reacting to the weather, it just makes it worse. Feeling your weight on the cushions of the chair. And this is how we start to become integrated. We open ourselves to our direct sensations of the body instead of being trapped in our mind. And then again, as we did last week, just bring to mind something that's moved you recently, something that's happened to you that's moved you a bit, opened your heart a bit. Because to understand how things really are, we need to open the body and we need to open the heart. We can't just think about stuff, that won't get us anywhere. So it can be something very everyday and ordinary, but just something that's moved you a bit. It's made you feel in touch with your emotional life. It can be something just recent or something all the way back to when you were a child. And then just come back to the weight of your body on the cushions or the chair. Tuning into the sounds around you. And when you're ready, coming out of the meditation. Okay, then, so let's see if I can find a way of talking about spiritual rebirth. As I say, this is really all just a sort of taster or a whistle-stop tour of the whole of the Dharma life, the whole of the Buddhist life. Then you probably need to just go back and start again and just come on the course or something and just learn it properly. It's a life practice. It's not actually a 4-week challenge. It's like a life challenge. but that's not such good marketing. Think of the Instagrams we'd have to do on that one. Sign up for life. So when the Buddha was asked about the nature of things, as I said, that there's this great matter that we don't understand, and that great matter is always present in our life. It is a great question right at the heart of our life. It's something we don't understand about our being in the world. In fact, it's something we don't understand about ourselves, and it's something we don't understand about the world. Now, when the Buddha was asked about it, he was famously metaphysically reticent, as it's called. In other words, that just means that he just felt his instinct, and I'm paraphrasing, was like, don't worry about that. You won't get anywhere with that. He'd just say, sort of, never mind that. Let's start with watching your breath, see whether you can do that. And let's start with seeing if you can be a bit generous, see if you can do that. We'll come to all that later on. He tended to be metaphysically reticent. He tended to be unwilling to speculate about the nature of things. And that wasn't because he didn't know the nature of things. In fact, he is a living embodiment of that. It's just that he knows first of all how misleading words are, and he knows how human beings get themselves into a tangle around words. So he was very reluctant to sort of create any kind of theory. The Buddhism isn't a theory of life. It's not even a theory about Buddhism. It's really to do with the Buddha sharing his experience and his observations. It's not a theory, yeah? And he was very very reluctant to theorize, very reluctant to speculate. He'd just say, practice the Dharma, as he called it, his teachings and practice, and you'll find out for yourself what the nature of reality is. But you can only find out what the nature of reality is on the basis of a fit mind. And that fit mind is the mind that I've described, that is a mind that's integrated and emotionally positive. Yeah? But he did say, and sometimes would talk more metaphysically, and the crucial thing he said is all things arise in dependence on conditions. Yeah? You get it? Perfectly straightforward. All things arise in dependence on conditions. It's sometimes called the law of conditionality, or conditioned co-production, it's sometimes called, which always sounds, again, rather technical. So he would say something like this. He would say, well, if you look at your experience very carefully, you see that it's not actually a chaos. Our contemporary idea is that life is a chaos and it's probably meaningless, and it's the main thing about life is that matter exists. Buddhism would refuse all of those assumptions. Yeah? So he would say, if you look at life, you see something that's orderly, beautiful, complex, that seems to have, as it were, through it, laws that you can pretty much rely on. Yeah? Of course, he's not being really metaphysical. He's just saying, this'll do for now, because he knows that any way of saying is potentially misunderstood. So he says, first of all, if he was here now, because he wouldn't have known this then, but he'd say, first of all, there are 3 laws that are governed by the sciences, yeah? that science can apprehend and has apprehended and is still apprehending, and actually we still don't know how much of those laws the science will discover. We keep on pushing back the frontiers of human knowledge. There's a wonderful poem by Wallace Stevens that says, how high that highest candle lights the dark. And what he means is how high consciousness, the light of consciousness, can light the dark of the universe, can learn things about the universe. Yeah? So I'll just whiz through those quite quickly. So first of all, there's the laws that are to do with inorganic matter. It sounds a bit grand, but it just means that something like the law of gravity, yeah? That if an apple will fall from a tree, it won't suddenly become a disco ball and spin around, and it won't fly, it'll fall from the tree. And we know there are problems with the law of gravity. but it's pretty reliable. If you know, if you're anyway, you know what I mean. It's as reliable as you need it to be. You know, you don't need to get into weird kind of philosophical abstractions. It's called utu nirma, which means just the how things are interrelated, how things come into being, how things are conditioned in an inorganic world. Yeah, that an apple will fall. Yeah. And those are laws, aren't they, that you can observe and that scientists have been observing, and they're like regularities running through reality. Yeah? If you don't believe it, try walking into a wall and you'll discover those laws immediately. Yeah? I don't recommend that. Secondly, there's a law above that called bija nirma, which is to do with organic material. So it's to do with things like the law of photosynthesis. It's to do with like how lymph circulates through the blood system and so on. So biochemistry and so on has ascertained all sorts of laws to do with and botany and so on have located all kinds of laws that are to do with things like that. Yeah, and they're reliable structures, aren't they? You can do incredible things with them. You can learn about them. And medical science has made incredible breakthroughs using those laws. Yeah, and the Sanskrit name is utu nirma. Nirma means law or something like that. Then there's another law above that, which is mano nirma, which is sometimes translated as a sort of law of psychology, but it doesn't mean how you felt about your mother. It means things like fight and flight, those kind of instincts, those sort of deep mind instincts. And they're discovered through things like zoology. They're things like how swallows migrate and so on. And they're all written into the patterning of things. One of the terrible things is we're disrupting those patterns so much. We're breaking some of those laws, but you see what I mean, on all those levels they're all covered, aren't they, by the sciences. They go from thermodynamics and electricity to the circulation of lymph, the circulation of lymph, I'm not very good on this, I'm way out of my depth already, and this is supposed to be the easy bit, to things like fight and flight and so on. So there are regularities that you can rely on, and science has endlessly explored those laws and made wonderful discoveries because of it. What Buddhism adds to the world picture is that the Buddha would say, but there are two more laws that govern human consciousness and interaction. So those are all underneath us are the laws of science, like mano nirma, for instance, this mind level. Actually, one of the things we're trying to do with mindfulness, this is a bit of a bracket, so it may not take too long, but one of the things we're trying to do with mindfulness is discover what kind of creature we are, what kind of mind we have. So I was saying the other day that I'm an extroverted thinker, which I wouldn't recommend, because it gets you into all sorts of trouble. But it's something I've had to come to terms with, that I think out loud, I think in front of people, and I don't have any sense of privacy about myself or about you. People don't mind me being not very private about myself and not so keen about and you. But that is sort of like part of my structure. I try and keep my mouth shut on occasion, but I'm not very good at it. My friend Maitreyabandhu I live with is the absolute opposite. You have to ask him what he thinks about you, and even then he says, well, what do you think? So he's a safer bet. So we've all got a kind of, our mind is structured in a certain way, in a manner, in a sort of way, and you can't change the structure of it. You can change the contents of your mind, and you can change what comes through out of your mouth. You can change what comes out of your mind, but you can't change the structure. So one of the things you're trying to learn is what kind of structure have I got, and how can I best use that structure. So I thought by practicing Buddhism I'd become this sort of quiet, Just sit here. I just nothing remotely like that. It never happened. And if you think it's going to happen, you'll just frustrate yourself. So you need to find out what kind of structure is, and that's part of mano niyama. And so the sciences reach into our direct experience and are very important. But yeah, there are two laws above that. So the first one is karma niyama. Now you might have heard this word karma. It just means action, that's all it means. It doesn't mean the refuter of your actions, it just means actions. So this comes into play to the degree to which there is self-consciousness present. Yeah? That as soon as there is reflective self-consciousness, human self-consciousness, and of course we're discovering that reflective self-consciousness goes into the animal kingdom more than we'd realised. Anyway, we're still finding that out. But as soon as you have reflective self-consciousness, you start to move into another law, another regularity, yeah, that governs how you interrelate with yourself and how you interrelate with people. Yeah, this isn't God ordained, just like electricity isn't, or thermodynamics, or anything else. It's just how. I don't actually even know what that means. It's how reality is structured. It's structured so that apples fall, on one hand, and it's structured so that if you act in a way that is harsh, unaware, trivial, passively aggressive, or whatever it is that we all can slip into, you will create for yourself and other people suffering. Yeah? Not because anyone ordains it to be like that. It is itself suffering. So the next time you're in a bad mood and you feel hard done by and indignant, just close your eyes and notice how you feel, and you find that you're suffering. It's not even that it causes suffering in the future, it is itself suffering. One of the things you often experience when you go on a retreat, which I'd really recommend you do, is you go on retreat and you realise how much you'd been suffering because you're in a better state of mind. Yeah? So karma niyama is saying that your actions have consequences. They have even appropriate consequences. So really that's a way of saying that what you do matters. What you say matters, even what you think matters. Buddhism includes thought in action. And of course it includes non-action and passivity in action. Yeah? So what the Buddha's insight is that your life is like a sculpture that you are continually building and creating. And this is now being shown more and more by brain science, that your brain is, they say now, is always plastic. It never actually sets. Everything you do is literally wiring your brain up. And what they say, don't they, what wires together fires together. So your psyche, human psyche, is actually self-sculpting. You can create a life that is flourishing, is good, is valuable, is happy and meaningful, or you can create a life that is the opposite of that. And the Buddha would say that's your responsibility. Yeah. And it's your responsibility because of this structuring of karma niyama, that you can cooperate with the structure of things. Yeah. So that's why if you've meditated today and if you've had a cup of tea and had a good chat with someone and got a sense of this wonderful atmosphere between us, which is what we're creating together, it's not something I'm creating, it's something that we're creating together, it's because you've been creating yourself through karma niyama. It's been very striking watching people. I come in the door and say goodbye to people if I can, and like so many of you have all got this like sparkles in your eyes. It's just great. Everyone looks a bit sort of sparklier, and that's because you've been cooperating with this structure of reality, which says that actions have consequences. Yeah. So coming here has consequences, just like if you decided to spend the morning in the pub would have consequences. And it's up to you what you decide to do. There's no God telling you what to do. The Buddha's not telling you what to do. He's just saying, which way do you want to go? Really, that's all he's saying. And if you want to go this way, then you need to practice this path. But it goes further than that. So you've got a structure above and beyond that as well. Yeah. And this is my way of trying to talk about this final stage of spiritual rebirth, which is so difficult to talk about. So as you shape your mind, to call it that, as you shape your life by how you act, And really all you need to do to change your life is start acting differently. And the Buddha especially stressed that you cultivate awareness and you cultivate generosity. Never mind mindfulness for now. Just try and be a bit aware of yourself and not just immediately react to how you feel, and try and be generous to those around you. As soon as you're generous, you slightly change your world, don't you? Like immediately, it's amazing. The smallest thing, you're in a really bad mood, if you just say, would anyone like a cup of tea? Rather than would I like a cup of tea? Suddenly you're in a little bit better place. Yeah? And that's because of the structure of things. As you do that, your sense of yourself, the self sense, as it were, thins. It becomes more transparent, more permeable, particularly more permeable with other people. You often feel lighter, brighter. It's not always brighter because, like I was very struck around the time of when my mother was dying that, how beautiful things were. I was phoning friends and I felt that there was much more permeability between myself and my friends, and there's much more heart in what I was saying, and there was a certain sort of grace. So it's not always like light and bubbly. That can just be just so much fluff, frankly. But as you sculpt your mind and your life by using the structure of karma nirma, self thins, and you start to feel, or you can start to feel, a new structuring of reality start to take place. Now this new structure of reality, which is called Dharma Nirma, is it's really important. It's nothing to do with your willing. Yeah? In fact, it takes place as you let go of egotistical willing, as you let go of wanting stuff, not wanting stuff, and being unsure about stuff. As you let go of that, which is basically letting go into the self, which is what I talked about last week, as you let go of that, a whole new kind of structuring of reality opens up to you, which takes you further and further beyond egotism. I mean, a wonderful example I had, it was a guy who came many, many years ago, and I've literally never seen since, but he was telling me about a walking holiday he'd done where he was on with a really heavy knapsack, and it was very wet, and it was raining all the time. He said he stood on top of this bank and was really fed up, really wet, there's still a long way to go. He said he just felt like he got to rock bottom, and then he slipped, and because his backpack was so heavy, he went down this hill. And as I was going to, he's this great big pond of muddy water, and he was trying desperately to sort of stop himself skidding down this hill with his backpack. And he said he just saw it coming. He was already, he thought, at rock bottom, and we were about to go a bit lower. And he said he just sort of slipped, just saw the water. This freezing cold, muddy water came up to here, and he said it was pouring with rain, and he just said, I just think I give up. That's it, I'm out of here. Yeah, I just give up, And he said as soon as he thought, I give up, everything was like incredibly beautiful. Everything, like the rain, the cold, everything was perfect. He said it was like, he'd never have known it was possible. He literally, without knowing it, he'd literally just thought, I just can't do this life. I can't get what I want and not get what I don't want. Our lives are horribly punished by that ongoing thing where we're always trying to get what we want and not get what we don't want. And in this moment, this guy, without knowing, just thought, it's never going to work. It's never going to work. And he just let go of all that. And as soon as you let go of that, he said he experienced things as incredibly beautiful and perfect in a way. And I knew exactly what he meant. Yeah? As soon as you let go of your willing and striving and wanting to get this but not that, a new kind of consciousness opens up, yeah, which is more than you but not separate from you. So if you think it's basically you, then you turn it into a kind of depth psychology, and that's not Buddhism. Yeah. If you think it's separate to you, you turn it into God, and that's not Buddhism. Yeah. It's something that goes beyond those distinctions. It's not you, and it's not you. It completes you and utterly goes beyond you. Yeah? And Buddhism saying that you can live in that, from that place, in that place. That's who the Buddha was, all the time living in that place. You become a kind of new species unto yourself. At the moment, in the particular climate we're in at the moment, it would feel like religious ecstasy more than it would feel like well-being. We've got this real worry about religion, quite understandably, but what that's done is it's cordoned off incredible profundities of human experience because we're worried that they're religious, because there might be God. Buddhism doesn't believe in God, but it doesn't believe in a secular world either. So do you see that the whole of the Dharma life, to use that term, is about using the karma niyama structure of reality, which is just how it is. It's just how the universe is structured. One day we need a philosopher to think more deeply about that. It's something I can't do, but it's basically saying that the universe is structured to prefer the good. One of the interesting things about that is that goodness and love can contain evil, can embrace evil, and has in remarkable individuals all the way through history. But evil can never contain and embrace love. That's one thought within that thought about that the universe is structured to prefer the good. And you don't need to, that's not a theory to cling to, it's something to test out to see whether that's true. And as you do that, a new kind of consciousness arises, which goes beyond you, but is not separate from you. I was going to give a few examples of how that is, but I'm a bit running out of time. So the main thing that I experience in my life, which actually I've had experiences of that, without doubt, so I'm very confident in that law. I'm not as confident as I need to be, but I'm pretty confident in that law, because I've experienced it to be the case. But the main place in ordinary life that people experience it is this idea of a muse. So any writer or filmmaker or dancer or whoever knows that you have to do all the work, you have to turn up, you have to keep rewriting, you have to keep re-editing, watching the Fablemans last night, you have to keep on, doing the Horizon and so on. You have to put in all the work. But you're doing that in order that something else can come into it, aren't you? Any artist worth their salts knows that you're trying to make room for what they used to call the muse, which was a sort of, it's like an archaic idea now, but it's a very, very important one, that something can participate in your experience and complete it and do much greater than you could do. The poet W.H. Auden, he says that there's no such person as a poet. You're either trying to be or you have been. Because he was saying, once you write a poem, and Auden has written, like Mahan, that I was reading earlier on, has written great poems, you think I can never do it again, because I didn't will it. Something else stepped in and made unjustified lines on a page a poem, or made marks on a canvas a painting. Some other structuring of reality steps in, and that can feel at one hand like the arrival of the angel in the Annunciation, and on another hand it can be the experience of the muse stepping into your work. And that muse can step into your communication, it can step into essentially step into your meditation. So one of the things I would recommend, and this is slightly naughty, but I'd recommend you go and see the Cézanne show. I've written a book of poems on Cézanne. This is my only chance to do this. But they're not great poems like Derek Mon, and they're nothing remotely as great as Auden, but they will give you a good introduction to Cézanne. So all you need to do is just go and look at a Cézanne and stand there for at least 20 minutes in front of one painting. So I was standing in front of a painting. I've been about 7 times. I'm going to this afternoon as well. I've been about 7 times so far. And I stood in front of this painting, and this woman came up to me. She said, "No one can take a photograph of this painting because you're standing in front of it." And she said, "You've been standing here for an hour." It was not true. It's about 20 minutes. And I said, "Well, it needs an hour to stand in front of." She said, "Yeah, sure." It's so funny. It was like, that was so absurd. But you know that you should look at it. Yeah, sure. Get out of the way. So what you do, you just look at the painting and you just wait. You get bored. You look at the attractive people in the gallery. You think, why am I doing this? You just keep on looking at the painting and you just keep waiting. There's some great masterpieces in that show, and you just keep waiting. And eventually you can feel the muse that stepped in and completed the painting steps in to you. Yeah? And that muse can take you beyond your imaginings all the way up to the Buddha himself. Yeah? Okay, so let's just finish. I think what we're going to do is we're going to finish by just chanting a mantra. So a mantra means that which protects the mind. But one of the reasons we chant mantras is to let the figure that the mantras and the name of step into our awareness. Yeah? So Greg is going to lead us in the Shakyamuni mantra. And all you need to do is chant the mantra. Don't worry, it won't sort of reconstruct your molecular web. It's just a mantra. You know, chant the mantra and just imagine that as you chant it, the Buddha steps into your... It's the mantra of the Buddha. Just imagine that the Buddha steps into your experience. And that would be experienced as incredible compassion and love and wisdom. Yeah, just imagine it. Just play with the idea. And then it'll gradually, the mantra will die down, and I'll ring a bell, and I think Michael's going to say something at the end. Yeah. So, closing your eyes. And again, tuning into your body. Coming back to the realities of your body. And then when Greg's ready, we'll hear the mantra and just join in and just imagine that as you're chanting the mantra, the muse of the Buddha steps into your experience.
Shakya
Okay, we've